Welcome everybody to a tutorial about how to create a component in Angular. So right now I'm on my private server. I'm not doing it on my local computer. So I have using WSP to actually log into my private server and look at my directory, or at least my apps and stuff. And I'm also an SSHing into it. With my, I think it's called Putty, but that's besides the point. Let's learn how to create a component. So in order to create a component, all you got to do is in your terminal, put ng, G as in generate, C as in component, and then put the name of the component you want to name. So I'm just going to name a component animal, and I'm just going to hit enter, and it's going to generate a number of files. It's going to generate a TypeScript of components. It's going to generate the Sass file, the HTML, and the spec files. And if I just reload my WinSCP, you see a new folder has appeared, and it has all these files in place. Another thing that's cool about it, if you go to app module, it automatically imports the animal component that you just generated, or whatever component you just generated, into the declarations property. Now that's really important, because if you want to display any information, any HTML stuff, or any changes that you created in an animal component, or any component that you created, it has to be in the declarations property. If it doesn't happen, it will come up with some type of error. But let's actually go into the animal component right now. So let me go into animal folder and go into animal component.html. When you look in there, it says animal works. Now, if you look into here, you don't see anything because we're still in app component.html, but there's a way that we can actually include the animal component into app component.html. And the way we do that is we have to look at the selector of the component. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine, because let's go to animal component.typescript. So you see here, there's a lot of things that are happening here. Right here, you see a component, and you see a class called animal component. Let's talk about the component function right here. Now, this component function is a decorator, and decorators are used to modify or enhance the overall class of the component. So you see a couple of properties here, which is selector, template URL, styles URL. So the selector is basically like the custom created element that's going to be named for the component. So if you put this custom created element in any type of component, it will output the information from the animal component or whatever component you created. The template URL is the information that's going to be displayed once you output animal. So if we actually go to animal component, it will output animal works. And the styles URLs are basically like the style sheets that you want to include within this component that will stylize your component in a specific way. So right now, there's probably nothing. There's absolutely no styles I've put in it, but we'll show an example later on how to use it. Now, like I was saying earlier, all you see in the first in the app component, which app component.html, is this stuff. This is like the default thing that you will see if you generated an Angular app. But if I want to include this new component that I created into the app component, all I have to do is go to app component.html and put the custom created name app animal into here. Let me copy this thing, put a bracket in here, app animal, and then like duplicate it, and then put an in closing tag, and then save it. So what this should do is put animal works, because that is what was displayed in the app animal component.html. Now I also wanted to show how to create components within other components. And the way you do that is you do ng, G generating, C as in component, and let's say I want to put another component but within animal. And the way you do that, all you got to do is just name the folder, which is animal, and then you do a slash, and then you type in the name of your component. I'm just going to type in beaver. And now it's going to create all the files, and all I got to do is go into the animal component that I created and just reload it, and you see another beaver or another component with beaver. And now you can see the HTML of beaver component. It says beaver works. And you can also, whoop, where am I at? And you can also go into the component in itself and see things like that. Now, let's actually try to change some stuff up by actually showing how to use some of the files or some of the styles I meant. So with the components.sass, there's absolutely nothing. Like I said earlier, there's absolutely nothing in here. And let's say that, let's also try to do something interesting by using certain properties that you can also implement in the component decorator. So here's a property called template. Template is pretty much like template URL, except you're not using the HTML. You're just outputting just a simple line of code that you can create within a string tag. So within here, I could put, this is a beaver, and save it. The thing is, it's not going to output into the app component.html because I didn't insert it into the app component. All I did, where is the app component right here? All I did was insert the app animal component. So, but I want to do something else. I want to actually add the beaver component within the animal component. So what I can do is look at the selector, and it's app beaver. And also I need to put a string, I need to put comma because this is some type of, this is an object literal and you need some commas to separate the properties. But let's go into the animal component, and since we saw that app beaver is the name of the beaver component, all we had to do is display here, put a closing tag, save it, and save this as well. And when it reloads, you should see animal works, and this is a beaver because in the component of the beaver, I added this is a beaver with a div tag. I don't know if I showed you this already, but there's a number of different properties that are not displayed, that were not displayed when you generate a component that you can add. We already have the styles URL, template URL, and then there's an animation property, which is going to be really interesting in the next couple of tutorials I make that talk about the different type of animations that you can use. But I also just want to demonstrate just one more thing about the Sass or the style sheets that you can create. I think I already outputted it. Here it goes. So I created in the component just a template where it has div tag and it says this is a beaver. What you can do is create a div tag and I don't know, put the color as teal, save the information, and it should output this is a beaver with teal. Now you notice that there's actually, it's only within this component that the style has been changed. So that's very interesting or very important to know because there's going to be so many different components, and with every component that you make, whatever style that you are creating, it's going to specifically target that one, right? So I think that is very interesting to know. Another thing that's very interesting, well, let's see if that's actually true, because let's see here. Let's put div and put a p tag, because if this is true, then that means both of them. Nope, none of them changes, only within this, because animal works is in the p tag. So within every type of component that you generate, it's only going to modify the style within that component. So that's awesome. Before I go, I do want to talk a little bit about properties and interpolating properties. So you have a class. So every component has a class, and you can create some type of property. Right now, I'm just going to create a property of a beaver and put private and put type, and then name it a string. So only strings can be assigned to this type, and say big sexy beaver, right? I'm going to close this, put comment, semicolon, and then I'm going to comment this out and bring back the template URL, save it. And then I'm going to go to component, and I am going to put double curly braces and put type. In order to output the properties that you have put within your component, like this, I named a variable or a property called type, and I had assigned it to Big Sexy Beaver. In order to output them, all you had to do is put them in curly braces and then put the name of the property. So when I go back and reload it, you see Big Sexy Beaver. Now there's other things you can really do with it, and we're gonna play around with that some more, and then also get into I think they're called template variables or temporary variables. It's gonna be some interesting stuff. I'm glad you watched. Hopefully you like what I did. I'll see you later.